Hey, good evening, everyone. Andrew Vyers here today. Before we get started, I want show of hands. Who has a cell phone either in their pocket, in their purse, backpack, whatever it may be, but somewhere within arm's distance? Show of hands. Almost all of us, right? Now, how many of you go ahead and reach in your pocket and pull out your phone? So, how many of you can pull up an app that looks similar to this, Maps or Google Maps, and with the click of a button,
starting route to Las Pulgas MCX,
you can find out how to get anywhere in the world. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how GPS changed the world. The things that I'm going to cover are life before GPS, kind of like life before electricity, right? Like, how did we get around? And then there's the invention of the GPS and the evolution of GPS. How did we get to where we are now with a global satellite system in our pocket? So life before GPS, everyone had to use compasses, even the sun, like which direction is north, which direction is south. You had to know where the sun set, where it rose. They used maps. Yeah, what's a map? Landmarks. And worst of all, sometimes people had to stop and ask another person for directions. I know, painful. But then there was the invention of the GPS. Now, this wasn't a quick thing, it was a slow evolving thing over time. And it started in November 1972 when Air Force Colonel Bradford Parkinson was tasked with overseeing a satellite navigation program. In 1973, his proposal of 24 satellites received approval from the Department of Defense. And then forward to, by the way, this system then was called Navstar Global Positioning System, which is Navstar GPS, and eventually just cut down to GPS. So then, in 1974, the U.S. started to develop this system. They started with a series of satellites and started to build the ground control system and various types of military user equipment. And this was primarily to be used by the U.S. military to help us out in wartime. In February of 1978, the first GPS satellite was launched. And then later that year, 3 more were launched as well. And then fast forward to 1995, the U.S. Air Force announced that the Global Positioning System, or GPS, has reached full operational capability. That's 24 satellites. So it took from 1972 to 1995 to actually become fully capable. So the evolution of GPS. We already talked about it being invented and the satellites being put up. But in 1983, President Ronald Reagan authorized the use of GPS by civilian commercial airlines to try and improve navigation and safety for air travel. And then a few years later, in 1989, A handheld GPS, similar to your phone, hit the market and was available to anyone. This GPS weighed 1.5 pounds. It only lasted a few hours before the battery would go dead, and it cost $3,000. That might not seem like a lot for that kind of technology at the time, but $3,000 in 1989 is equivalent to about $7,300 today. Can you imagine paying that just for a GPS? And then we move forward even further. In 1995, GM introduced the first GPS system in a vehicle. It was in an Oldsmobile, and they called the GPS system GuideStar. And then a few years later again, in 1999, the first GPS cell phone was invented. Thing looks hideous. So in summary, we talked about life before GPS. Yes, people had to talk to people. People had to read maps. How many people in here know how to read a map? Show of hands. Yeah, not that many. That's kind of what I expected. Because it's just so convenient that we have this GPS now on our phone and we can pack it around everywhere. We talked about the invention of the GPS, how it went from 1972, from just being a thought, all the way to being in our phones, in our pockets, everywhere we go. And then we talked about the evolution of the GPS. How did it get from this huge system that was only available in aircraft, again, to a tiny phone that we carry around in our pocket? Technology is amazing and has come so far over the years. And it's crazy to think how far we've come. If you think about it, 1972 wasn't that long ago. And fast forward in 2023, now we all have a cell phone with internet and GPS capability and games, everything else. So I want to thank you guys for listening to me rant today and talk about GPS and the amazing technology that it is and how it changed the world and the way we get around. Any questions?